Hello, viewers. I hope you're taking good care of yourself. So, let's get started with our next lesson of UAE SST for grade 8 from book 2, lesson number 4, Colonial North America. Have the learning objectives to explain the settlement of colonial North America by the different European colonists. When I say colonial, that means that these countries, America and the European countries, were colonist by nature. That means that they wanted to extend their empire, extend their spheres of influence in other countries too. So that's the reason they colonized the continents of Asia and Africa to a great extent. A UAE link: UAE was colonized by the British till 1971, and now it is like almost 50 years completed by this country. Next is the CC link. This topic deals with the colonization of North America. So it should be linked with history. So in this chapter, we are going to see not the colonization of Asia or Africa, but we will see the colonization of North America by the different European countries. Now, let us see the warm-up brainstorm question. Why is English spoken in US and parts of Canada? And why is French spoken in part of Canada? What are the reasons for it? And why is Spanish spoken in Mexico? Were these languages of indigenous people? Were these languages of the native people? Okay, so I have given you the explanation over here. You can go through. So here we come to the lesson now, the Portuguese colonies of Africa. From early 1400s, Europeans were trying to find a way to get to China and India by sea. As you are aware of it, that in 1453, there was a land route which connected Europe to Asia. That one land route, which was the only land route, was closed by the Ottoman Turks as Constantinople, present day Istanbul, fell into the hands of these people, that is the Ottoman Turks. So they closed the land route. Europeans had no other option, but they had to search for the sea route. So as you can see over here in the map which I have put of Vasco da Gama, so his first voyage to India in 1497. So it took them pretty long time, like almost, if you say, 50 years for them to discover the sea route to India. They just cannot let the trading with India and China go away, because the things which were in great demand in European markets were the silk, the tea, the spices, and the porcelain. So porcelain is what? It is the different kinds of beautiful crockery which you get. We call it as China ware. You get the dinner set, you get the tea set, the lemon set, and so on. Now, these the Portuguese were the first people to explore this route around from Portugal. They started. You can see that red line moving from Cape Verde Island, Saint Helena, from the Atlantic Ocean, Cape of Good Hope, turning around from the southernmost tip of African continent, and then moving towards India in Asia. So this particular map is giving you a clear indication about the direction or the sea route which was chosen by Vasco da Gama. On this route, they met with the powerful Malian kingdoms and Igbo kingdoms along the coast of the Western Africa. To trade with these kingdoms, the Portuguese established forts and colonies off the African coast in the Atlantic at Cape Verde Islands. In the colonies, they started sugar plantations. Now, this is what I am talking about with respect to Africa. By 1498, Vasco da Gama had traveled around Africa and explored India. For the next 150 years, the Portuguese explored and colonized the Indian Ocean region. So, slowly and steadily, the Portuguese came as traders to India, but politically they colonized a few regions of India. They were not to that way, they were not successful the way the Britishers were. The Britishers had taken almost the entire region of India, including present day Bangladesh and Pakistan. Spanish colonies of North America. When Christopher Columbus sailed from Spain and discovered the Caribbean islands, he called them Hispaniola. Today, these islands are known as Haiti or the Dominican Republic. By the mid 1500s, the Spanish had conquered or settled much of South America, Central America, and Mexico. So you find that the Spanish people going over there and colonizing all these regions, that is South American region, Central America, and Mexico. Together, these regions are also referred to as Latin America. So it's a huge, big continent. The Spanish Empire forced the indigenous population, that is, the native people of that Latin America, who had not died of disease, to perform hard labor of their colonies. That means that the hard, laborious tasks were given to the natives of Latin America by the Spanish colonizers. They worked on plantations and in other areas such as the gold and the silver mines. So, working in the mines and in the plantations is not an easy job. And this was the job which was deputed to the people of Latin America. So, if they didn't die of diseases, this was the hardships which they were supposed to face. Later in the 1500s, the Spanish moved northward into the land that is now the state of Florida in the US. The local populations along the coast of the Gulf of Mexico decreased in numbers drastically due to diseases carried by the Spanish and fighting with the Spanish. Hernando de Soto was one of the famous Spanish explorers who expanded the influence of Spain in the Americas. Here comes activity two. You can see it's your textual activity, which I have picked up from there and I have matched it for you. You can go through colonies and how the French had taken over. So, in the early 1600s, French, Dutch, and English established colonies in North America. So, it was a race and it was a rat race for these European colonizers who wanted to go into the region of America and get maximum benefits out of it. So, they started colonizing the regions, each concentrated in a land area and concentrated in producing specific goods to sell to European traders. The French explored and settled mostly in the area of Canada. Many French settlers were fur traders along the Mississippi River system down to New Orleans. The French colonized along the St. Lawrence River and established the new cities of Quebec and Montreal as fortified cities. That means very well secured and guarded cities for the fur trade with the indigenous people of the region. So they took care of it that this fur trade should be their monopoly. It shouldn't be the it shouldn't be that they would be taken by some other countries and colonizers. So they wanted a strict monopoly of trading of fur only between the natives and them so that it could be sold in the European markets and get maximum benefits out of it. Now, we have done in detail about the French going into the region of Canada and occupying it in our previous chapter. Colonies which were taken by the Dutch. Now you can see over here in the map, it shows you very clearly. The orange part is the English colonization, whereas the blue ones are the Dutch people taking over. That is the people of Netherlands taking over the region of North America. So over here, the Dutch settlers tried to settle in the area of New York along the Hudson River. However, this settlement was soon colonized by the English, who came to dominate the eastern seaboard of North America. The Dutch settlers focused on their possessions of the Caribbean islands of Curaçao and Aruba on the north coast of South America. They established sugar plantations through the West India Company. So, in India, they started with the East India Company, which was established in London in 1600. Whereas over here, you'll find the reference of West India Company, which was formed by the Dutch settlers completely into the business of sugar plantation. So they were just focusing their attention not on New York, but they were more having the prized possessions in the Caribbean islands of Curacao and Aruba. The North American colonies of the English. The first English settlement was attempted in 1607 at Jamestown in a new colony called Virginia. The English settlers were interested in finding precious metals or other goods, but the colony was largely a failure as a few of the settlers had good farming skills. They were not miners, but they were good farmers. So that's the reason they couldn't be successful in their attempt. Most of the colonists died of starvation. The colony was reorganized as a farming and plantation colony. So they, instead of giving a lot of focus on the mining activity, then they started focusing on the farming and plantation over there. The plantation system created huge farms and brought enslaved people from Africa to do the hard work starting in the year 1619. So, this was a slave trade, which you can see, and how it was flourishing over there in this region of North America in the Virginia state. So, the English settlers were buying the slaves from the African continent and then giving them this hard laborious task in the farms and fields. English settlers did not mix with the indigenous people. When they moved into the areas, they forced native populations to leave. In the northeast, the British established the New England colonies. By 1627, a settlement at Plymouth in the colony of Massachusetts was established. It faced great difficulty, especially due to the poor soil. Obviously, the soil should be very fertile for the production of the crops. So, for farming activities, the first and the foremost important thing is that how rich is your soil. Then, short growing season. That means they did not have the moisture and the warmth for a pretty long time, but it was short. Then the harsh winters of the area. So that also retarded the farming process. Next is in the British colonies, people living in one colony were not allowed to trade directly with the people in non English colonies. All the valuable products from the American colonies first had to be shipped across the Atlantic to England and then put on English ships for trade to the other parts of the world. So this was the control in the trade by the Britishers in America. So they just couldn't trade with each other. So internal trade was not at all prevalent, except for the English people intervening and getting things done through their hands. Spanish colonies of North America. When Christopher Columbus sailed from Spain and discovered the Caribbean islands, he called them Hispaniola. Today, these islands are known as Haiti or the Dominican Republic. By the mid 1500s, the Spanish had conquered or settled much of South America, Central America, and Mexico. So you find that the Spanish people going over there and colonizing all these regions. That is South American region, Central America, and Mexico. Together, these regions are also referred to as Latin America. So it's a huge, big continent. The Spanish Empire forced the indigenous population, that is, the native people, of that Latin America who had not died of disease to perform hard labor of their colonies. That means that the hard laborious tasks were given to the natives of Latin America by the Spanish colonizers. They worked on plantations and in other areas such as the gold and the silver mines. So, working in the mines and in the plantations is not an easy job. And this was the job which was deputed to the people of Latin America. So, if they didn't die of diseases, this was the hardships which they were supposed to face. Later in the 1500s, the Spanish moved northward into the land that is now the state of Florida in the US. The local populations along the coast of the Gulf of Mexico decreased in numbers drastically due to diseases carried by the Spanish and fighting with the Spanish. Hernando de Soto was one of the famous Spanish explorers who expanded the influence of Spain in the Americas. Here we have the next part of it, that is the American Revolution from 1776 to 1783. By 1776, the British colonies wanted to separate themselves from Britain. It is like enough is enough. We are not going to take any more from you. Leaders from each of these 13 colonies met and drafted a Declaration of Independence, which was submitted to King George III, who was the ruler of Britain during that time. When the king refused to accept the declaration, a war started called the American Revolution. And it took only 7 years of warfare. In 1783, the British retreated, it surrendered, it moved back to England. In 1786, the Treaty of Paris was signed by Great Britain, who recognized, acknowledged the former colonies as the United States of America. And in this manner, we have the birth of USA. So it just took them 7 years to get rid of the Britishers. And if you see in reality, the Americans, a few of them were originally from Britain since they were tired of the tyrannical rule of their monarchy. So they just went and migrated to the region of America, wherein the mother country comes and starts putting a lot of pressure on the people. They could take it for some time, but when it was too much for them to take it, they just started a revolution and within 7 years got rid of their mother country, severed all the ties, cut down all the ties with them. Americans celebrate July 4th as their Independence Day, even though the document was signed not until August 2nd, 1776. But till date, people celebrate July 4th as the American Day of Independence. We have activity 3 very much from your textbook. You can go through and you can see the answers, you can check the answers. Here we have the new countries, the United States, the Haiti and Mexico. I've put up a small little map which will give you an idea that how close they are to each other. You have United States, USA up, below that you have Mexico. On the right side, that is, we call it the eastern region, southern eastern region, you have got the Haiti. Okay, so over here in 1786, at a constitutional convention, the United States issued its first constitution, that is the written book of laws to be followed by the country. All the countries have got their book of law, and that book of law needs to be followed by the citizens so that it is the administration is smooth sailing. So that was approved by the states in 1788. It created a federal system of government. Now when I say federal system, it is that you have got a central government which is stationed, which is occupying the capital of the country, Whereas you have got the state governments or the provincial or the regional governments. So in this manner, the power is being divided into different hierarchy. So there is a division of power. If only the central government takes over the entire administration of the country, then it would be an autocratic government. It won't be a government which would be a democratic government. Now, since America has got presidential democracy, obviously they need to divide the power amongst the different layers or hierarchy. So over here, you have a federal system of government which was being formed that reserved certain rights to the individual states. So there were states being formed. Obviously, all the countries have the provinces or the regions of the states being formed for the convenience of administration, to have their own elected legislatures, governors, and law courts. One central government seated in the capital cannot take care of all these things. So the legislature, the executive, and the judiciary were taken care by their own regional governments. The federal or the association or the national government, in other words, kept the power of military and defense, the regulating of trade, and the federal court system to resolve the issues between the states. So all these things were kept with them. The other powers were given to the states. It established a system of electing representatives to the Congress. I've put up the federal system just for a good understanding of you people so that you can understand it well. Then you have got the executive, wherein you have got the president, and then below that you have a vice president and his cabinet of ministers. They enforce the laws, the legislature makes the laws, whereas the judicial is the judiciary which sees to it that all these laws are put into practice. So they interpret the laws, and you have got this. Now, during that time, we had this first president, that is George Washington, and he was known as the president, the first president of United States of America. End of slavery. The issue of slavery became a complicated part of the new constitution. Presidents of the US were slave owners, and 12 of the first 18 presidents were slave owners at some time during their lifetimes. So, although bringing in a newly enslaved people ended in 1807, the practice of owning people was not forbidden until 1865 after the American Civil War. Even after slavery was outlawed, African Americans, those who were the African people settled in America, were treated much the same as they were before. That means they were not treated equal as the whites were treated, as the original Americans were treated. More than 150 years later, African Americans and other minorities struggled for equal rights under the law. It was so much prevalent, racism was so much prevalent in America that there were many the Africans or the African Americans, in other words, to enter and can feed themselves. No, they were not allowed. Then traveling in the first class compartment was not allowed to them. Then there were certain amusement parks, certain areas where they were debarred from entering. So even the professions, even at a place of work, they were facing lots and lots of inequalities. So it was the the white Americans only who came forward, championed for them, and won this equality for them. So it was the end of slavery, but it took a pretty long time for them to really come out of it. Activity 5 from your textbook, please check it. Hello, viewers. I hope you're taking good care of yourself. So, let's get started with our next lesson of UAE SST for grade 8 from book 2. Lesson number 4, Colonial North America. Next is in 1821, the former colony, which was New Spain, you can see it on the above map, declared itself an independent country. So when you look at the map which is below, you get an idea that at one time this particular region was called as New Spain. After 1821, it was called as Mexico. So in 1824, it became the Republic of Mexico with a new constitution, with a new law book. Soon after, the Republic of Mexico attempted to consolidate, make themselves firm its territories to the north in Texas, New Mexico, and California, which came into conflict with the American expansion of the United States into these same territories. So, Mexico was growing, it had one independence and wanted to expand itself. At the same time, USA also wanted to expand itself. So, there was a friction. Here is activity 6 from your textbook. Please check it. Activity 6 continued. So children, here we have the plenary questions. You can see there are 7 to 8 questions which I have put up. I hope you'll be able to answer it well. Children, so I take a leave. Thank you so much for watching, and with good wishes I just take a leave. I hope that this video would be beneficial for you, it would be helpful for you in your examination. I hope you prosper and do well in your life. Take very good care of yourself. See you next time with my new video. Till then, bye bye.